Hey guys, Steve Wise here, president and founder of Mental Fitness LLC. And today I am here to talk about goal setting. But before we talk about proper goal setting, let's just talk honestly about goals. So typically we maybe think about goals personally once a year, and that's usually around New Year's. And most of those goals sound something like I want to eat better, exercise more, or quit smoking. And every one of those goals is crap because they're just very, very wimpy goals, right? Like, let's think about it. To eat better is very, very vague. Like, what does it mean to actually eat better? To exercise more falls into the same trap. What is it to exercise more? It's not very specific. It doesn't have very much depth or any planning to it. And then to quit smoking, or like any all or nothing goal, is exactly that. You know, people may quit for a day, but then as soon as they have one lapse, they think, screw it, and go right back to, a pack a day or whatever the baseline was. So most goals fail, unfortunately. And odd side note, they usually fail by February 1st. That is traditionally the day where more people eat fast food than go to the gym, once again. And so by February 1st, our goals have failed because they were too vague, too all or nothing, or we didn't stick with them consistently. And then maybe we try again next year. What I want to do in this presentation is help break that cycle. I want to help people add depth to their goals where they are not kind of vague, wimpy, and all or nothing. So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look. For the purposes of these next 10 principles, I want to use a real life example. And the example I want to use was when I decided to train for an Ironman triathlon, technically a half Ironman, an Ironman 70.3 in Hawaii, which involved a 1.2 mile swim in the ocean, a 56 mile bike ride up and down a mountain, and then a 13.1 mile run in some kind of grueling heat in Hawaii, which is where they actually do the official Ironman challenge every year as well. So in order to do that, a little background, I'm at a wedding with my buddy, and my buddy says, "Hey Steve, do you want to do a triathlon with me?" And I had done some long biking in the past and some running, but I'd never done a triathlon before. And so my initial instinct was no, I don't want to do that. I'm a terrible swimmer. I've never really trained in swimming. It doesn't come easily or naturally to me. Hard pass, man. I'm cool. I appreciate the invite. Thank you, though. My friend Oliver, though, persisted. And he was like, "Steve, I want to do this because, my mom at the time was in really poor health and then not long later passed away. So he said, I want to do this in my mom's memory. And I think you're somebody who would really truly do it with me, and I could really use your support." And almost got me there. And then he looks, towards my wife. He's like, "And we can travel somewhere really fun like Hawaii for it." And I think that's when I was sold. So that day at the wedding, I said yes and committed to the Ironman triathlon. So the first thing I had to consider is, what's my cause? In Weight Watchers, they say keep your why close by. And really, a strong why will overcome any how-to in figuring it out. So the why for me was kind of threefold, right? It was, my cause was to A, support Oliver in, doing this in the memory of his mother. B, to prove to myself I could do something I've never done before. I was not into swimming whatsoever, but I wanted to prove to myself I could do something I had never done before. And at the time, I had the idea to write the book Mental Fitness, and I had actually talked about these 10 goals and how other highly successful people had used them to get to the level of success they had achieved. What I had not done, however, and what I felt a little hypocritical about, was that I had not yet used all of these principles myself to achieve a big goal. And I knew this was the opportunity for me to do that. Lastly, my why was, if I can do something I've never done before, then perhaps in the process, I can inspire other people to do something they've never done before as well. And those were my whys. And that, anytime I struggled, I came back to my why. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And that really helped me stay determined to push through some stuff. But that's principle number one. Find a cause. As they say in Weight Watchers, keep your why close by. Principle number two, commit then figure out. I didn't know how to swim. Not well. I could do, maybe a length of the pole and then turn around and kind of then exhaust myself and doggy paddle back. It was really ugly. But I committed to it, and I then, said, I'm gonna figure this out along the way. The challenge is that most of us don't take this commit then figure out approach. We take the opposite of that, which is all my ducks need to be in a row, which for me, ducks in a row is a no-go. So what do I mean by that? If I had said at the time, well, all right, hold on, Oliver, I want to commit to this, but first I have to find out where I can do some swim lessons. Then I got to figure out when I'm going to get to swim lessons, and I got to figure out if I can afford swim lessons, and I got to figure out if I, kind of jive with the coach. And then maybe after I figure out where and when and how I'm going to afford swim lessons, and maybe if I get a good trust and a rapport with the coach, and then maybe I prove to myself I can do maybe half or 2/3 of the event in the pool, then I'll consider. Never would have done it. Right? Ducks in a row for me is a no-go. The more successful approach is commit, then figure out. And the best way to up your commitment is to number 3, get some skin in the game. What is skin in the game? Skin in the game is investing in yourself and in the goal, right? A trip to Hawaii was not cheap. A plane flight was not cheap. The place where we stayed was not inexpensive. A gym membership was not cheap. Swim lessons weren't cheap. And all of this required me to get some skin in the game. It required me to get invested. But think about this. The more skin in the game you have, actually the higher the success of your goal. If somebody pays $10 a month to go to the gym, you may or may not go. It's not that big a deal if you lose $10 a month. But if somebody pays $20,000 a year to go to school, he or she is going to be a lot more likely to go to class than whose parents pay for them to go and they're going for free, right? The more invested you are, the more skin in the game you have, the more likely you are to achieve that goal. So for me, it was registering for the event and paying a couple $100s to register for the event, booking that flight, booking the place where I was going to stay, and getting some skin in the game to motivate me to think I can't just easily quit. I've got too much in this to quit. And I encourage you to do the same. Principle number 4, positive self-sabotage. What this means, sabotage literally means to obstruct. When you do this in a positive way, what you're doing is you are obstructing yourself from making negative decisions, usually by changing and manipulating your environment to foster better decisions. So for example, positive self-sabotage is for me, I try to keep a clean fridge, right? If I have cookies sitting out, easily accessible, I'm gonna walk by and be like, cookie, right? I'm not gonna think anything of it. But if I don't have any cookies in the house and I have to drive to Sheetz, to get in my car and then drive, maybe it's cold and I have to wait in line and then come back, I'm gonna eat the yogurt or carrots or whatever else may be in my fridge, right? So positive self-sabotage is all about designing your environment to nudge you towards better decisions and to put up a whole bunch of obstacles between you and bad decisions. And you can use this in anything. You can use this, want to watch less TV, really want to do that, cancel cable. Second to canceling cable, maybe put your remote in a box in the basement or in the attic somewhere. If you don't want to check your emails so often, put your emails in a folder, in a folder, in a folder, in a folder, so it takes 10 clicks to get to in 20 seconds instead of 1. There's a lot that you can use positive self-sabotage. Want to play more guitar? Take your guitar out of the closet, fully tune it, put it in front of the TV that you don't have a remote for anymore, and when you come home and sit down and you're used to watching TV, if you have to go in the attic to get your remote, but instead you have a fully tuned guitar there, you're going to be a lot more likely to play guitar. So positive self-sabotage is doing whatever you can to change your environment to nudge you towards better, more convenient decisions, and to sabotage yourself to make it less convenient to make bad decisions in a way that doesn't just make it so that you're strictly relying on all of your willpower. Principle 5, seek support. The reason I say seek support is because support is not going to be thrust upon you. Unless you're in the military or in some sort of inpatient rehab setting, no drill instructor is going to wake you up at 5 a.m. It's up to you. But how do we then get the support and structure that really does help, places like the military or inpatient rehabs to have high levels of success? Well, it's up to you to seek that support. So for me, that was reaching out to my friend Chris to go on long bike rides. That was reaching out to my friend Howard to meet me at the gym at 7 in the morning to go swimming. I was reaching out to my neighbor Dan to go hiking on Wednesdays. It was reaching out to my friend Scott to go for a run, or for my friend Scotty to teach me how to swim. But all of that I had to initiate. I had to make the effort to seek support. And here's the thing, so having support is not a sign of weakness. You cannot have too much support, right? Like LeBron James, best player in the NBA, him and Steph Curry, kind of a toss-up, but LeBron James has a shooting coach, a nutritionist, a sports psychologist, a chiropractor, a massage therapist, a head coach, an assistant coach. He doesn't have too much support. But for people like us, it's up to you to seek that support and put it in place, and not just have one, but have many, because if one support falls, you still have a lot more along the way. So S here, seek support. M, kind of for the acronym SMART, which I've somewhat upgraded and changed from its original kind of specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. I've tweaked, I think I've given it an upgrade. But I did keep make it measurable, because as they say in LA Fitness, what you measure gets improved. And this is true, right? If you measure your weight, even just the act of measuring your weight is gonna make you more conscientious about what you put in your body, right? When I measure calories and I know a mocha frappe from McDonald's is 550 calories and I'm measuring it, I can't be blissfully ignorant to what I'm putting in my body because I'm measuring it. So you want to make all of your goals measurable so you know if you're making progress. And if you are, you get that dopamine sense of, I'm doing well, I'm on the right path. And if you don't, you get this kind of guilt feeling, which guilt is actually a good thing. It's your GPS system letting you know, hey, I'm off track. So one of the best things that I did to train for this was I got a smartwatch, right? And my smartwatch told me the calories I had burnt throughout the day. And if I had a morning workout where I crushed it, I'd get updates on my smartwatch and be like, man, I burned 500 calories already this morning. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Or I could have days where it was mid-afternoon. I'm like, man, I burned like 90 calories today. I feel kind of like a slacker. But keeping it measurable made it so that I didn't get too far off track. And that's really, really key. Make it measurable. What you measure gets improved. Add accountability. As I mentioned, Howard was my kind of accountability partner in this. Now, Howard is, at the time, he was 59, 60 years old, and I was 30. So we weren't necessarily on the same physical level, but we did the same things at our own pace. But Howard showed up every morning at the gym at 7 a.m. And what this did was it made me get there at 7 a.m. because I didn't want to stand up Howard. I didn't want to, not show up and ghost him. I wanted to make sure, hey, I might be a couple minutes late, but I'm going to be there every day because you're there. And that accountability made it so that I got there. And what we got to look at is how this support and accountability becomes then synergistic. I remember there was a time I was gonna do a hike at 7 in the morning with Howard and then my neighbor Dan, and it was raining. And if it had been up to me, I would have probably just said, I'm going alone, I don't really feel like walking in the rain. But I knew I was meeting Howard, and I didn't want to let him down. And Dan knew he was meeting me, and all three of us somehow ended up there, my little dog Sierra too, and we went hiking in the rain. And as we're hiking in the rain, we're all talking to each other and been like, yeah, if it was just up to me and my own will, I would have slept in. But because we were accountable to each other and because we had that support, that synergy lifted us all up and got us there, right? And we weren't just fair weather fans, and that's what it takes to achieve a big goal. You gotta sometimes kind of walk through the rain. You can't just be a fair weather fan. And ways to push through that and not just rely on self-will, add that support, add that accountability. Routine, routine, routine. Goals don't change people. Lifestyles and routines do. So my routine is to work from 9 to 6, which gave me the opportunity to work out from 7 to 8, take a quick shower and get to work. So I had an hour every morning at 7 a.m. And that became my routine. And it was, to swim on Tuesdays and Thursdays, hike on Wednesdays, go for a long run on the weekends or a long bike ride. And then I had kind of measurable goals along the way to make sure I was, could run a half marathon, to make sure I could swim a certain amount. But that routine is what really got me there. And I remember the first 2 months were pretty hard. I felt like when I was getting up at 6:30 to get to the gym at 7, I was kind of dragging a little bit. But then after about 2 months, I remember my body adjusted. And I remember waking up before my alarm. And I remember waking up feeling energized for a workout. And it was a really odd feeling. But because I had gotten into the routine of it, my body had adjusted. And that's what routines allow. Like, yes, they take activation energy at first, but it's always hard until it's easy. And a routine can get us to the point where we don't have to think about it. It becomes kind of rote. It becomes just our new habits. But again, goals don't change people, lifestyles and routines do. Time bound. When we look at it, the event took place on June 3rd of 2017. By May 3rd, I was able to do my first open water swim, and swimming was a continual struggle for me. I reached out. At one point, I sought the advice of a random lifeguard who gave me a good tip about breathing. At another point, I wanted to quit. Thought back to my why. I watched a Tim Ferriss video on overcoming fear, in which case he talked about total immersion swimming, and that was huge for me. I kind of developed my own technique that worked for me. But the worst part of the entire journey was when I did my first open water swim. It was a 0.6 mile course in Keystone State Park, and I hopped in the water and I immediately freaked out. It was cold, I was in a wetsuit, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. When I went to do the backstroke, which is easy to do in a pole, I couldn't spot and I was zigzagging in a whole bunch of different directions. I did half as much as I intended. I wanted to do the 0.6 mile course twice. I did it once. It took me twice as long as I thought. And it was actually a little embarrassing because I had the spotter kind of following me, seeing me struggling the whole time. And that was discouraging because it was 1 month away from the event in Hawaii that I had committed to, which was scary. So I had to really stay determined. And I had to, everything led to this, the skin in the game, the time-bound goal, that I couldn't call up the marathon guys or the Ironman guys, but guys, feel a little worried about this. Can you bump it back like a month for me? That time-bound goal of, being June 3rd, that gave me a sense of urgency. That gave me a sense of focus. And fortunately, I was able to, kind of principle 10 here, stay determined. I got back in the pole. I made some fourth quarter adjustments. I didn't touch the end of the wall so I could learn how to spot and pivot. I got rid of the backstroke because I couldn't spot with that, and did a side stroke and a breaststroke as a recovery stroke. Then I went back to Moraine State Park for a swim with Howard. And so I had his support. It was a 0.25 mile course. We did it 4 times. I took what I had learned from making the fourth quarter adjustments in the pole and was able to do a mile swim there 2 weeks later. And then 2 weeks later for the actual event in Hawaii, I was able to do the full 1.2 mile swim with some excellent encouragement from my wife and her support throughout all of this, with Howard with me in spirit as my accountability partner throughout all of this. By taking all 10 of those goals, I was able to do something I had never done before, which was to take a guy who could barely swim a length of a pole to swimming 1.2 miles in the ocean. So when we look at the 10 principles of goal setting, find a cause, keep your why close by, commit, then figure out. Ducks in a row is a no-go. Skin in the game, get invested. Invest in yourself, it's the best investment you can make. Positive self-sabotage, change your environment to nudge yourself towards better decisions and obstruct yourself from negative decisions. Seek support, you can't have too much. Make it measurable. What you measure gets improved and stays on track. Add accountability. Get accountability partners. That will make the whole goal synergize. Routine, routine, routine. Routines change people. Goals don't change people. Routines and lifestyles do. Make it time bound. That gives you a sense of focused urgency. And lastly, stay determined. We all fall off the horse at times. The goal is, how quickly do you get back on? So after I was able to do the swim, I pushed through the bike ride, I pushed through the run, I was able to complete the Ironman Hawaii, and I'm very, very proud of that. And I think back to my why, right? I come back to that. And the fact that I was able to do something I never had done before inspired me to then do other things I'd never done before. Like maybe if I can swim in the ocean in Hawaii, I can be a children's book author, and later I published The Amazing Chase. Maybe I can start my own business, and not long after that I started Mental Fitness. It also then felt really good about doing that for Oliver, who also completed the journey with me in his mom's memory. And lastly, it did inspire others too. Howard, who at 60 years old did his first triathlon in Florida, sprint triathlon, and that was really cool to see too. So the goal is this: if you have a goal, we don't want it to be vague, we don't want it to be wimpy, we don't want it to be all or nothing. I guarantee if you take every one of these 10 principles and you add it to any goal you have, your odds of success will go up dramatically. And with that, I thank you for listening.